CTTB Music Podcast.
Music. Kudos.
Hello, Happy New Year, 2015, all that malarkey.
Yes.
We're back.
2015.
Yes, it's, yeah.
It's another year.
It is another year.
Yeah.
It's like years and years.
It is like years. It's like 5 years to be precise.
5
We've been
years.
doing this.
And thank you, the one person
Consistently.
that has probably listened to all of the podcasts.
To all of them. It wasn't either of us.
Yes. So speaking of fives,
Yep.
we have two sets of fives in our first podcast.
Oh, I like what you did there.
Yeah.
Very good.
We have the 5 people that were shortlisted by the BBC in their Sound of 2015, who are George the Poet, Raury, Stormzy, there's definitely an E theming going on there,
Yep.
James Bay, and Years and Years.
Mm-hmm.
And then, after we've had a quick discussion of them, we're going to go on to, because as you said, we've done 5 years of this, we have 5 best of albums of the year.
Choices. Yeah.
So we decided, however, you suggested in fact, that maybe we should come up with what our album of the podcast.
It's the best of the best of.
Yeah, although it has to be from the ones that won.
Yeah.
Yeah, because otherwise it would
Otherwise it wouldn't work, would it?
No. Otherwise, my top 3 might have been 2013.
My top three would probably have been 2013 as well.
Yeah.
But maybe more on that later.
Exactly. However, so we will start, as we usually do at this time of year, with the BBC's choices, and kick off at number 5 with George the Poet. So, your views on George the Poet?
Spoken word.
Spoken word indeed.
Spoken word. And here comes spoiler alert. Probably my favourite of the 5. So it's downhill from here on in. No, I was really impressed with George the Poet. I think he should have scored higher than 5, to be honest, in the chart. But these decisions.
Perhaps they just didn't think he was commercial enough.
Oh, maybe not. Yeah. I suppose that's a consideration when we have polls like this. Yeah, so maybe not. But that's not to say that it isn't quality, because it is. In particular, what makes him different to other spoken word artists that we've liked of late? It kind of felt more personal in terms of the stories that he's telling. It felt more relatable. From a young person's point of view, which I don't pretend to be, and there was much more of a, I don't want to say social commentary going on, but something a little bit more real than perhaps other artists that are sort of more political, perhaps, and societal in the issues that they address. So I don't know. I thought he was really accessible, and my favourite, and I would strongly recommend this. And I think unconventionally for me, normally we rattle through these lists at the start of the year, and I never really sort of think about them again until perhaps an album comes along later. And we had a couple of good albums a couple of years ago. 2013.
To be fair, it's pretty much the EP is pretty much an album. It's quite that's longer than some of the albums we've reviewed.
Yeah, the point I was going to come to, the Chicken and the Egg EP by George the Poet. It's already on my list for 2015. Admittedly, it's probably the only thing on my list for 2015 at this stage, but that should not denigrate the quality of that particular collection.
And it is a collection because it's themed as well. It's about.
It's very much a theme that runs across it.
Yeah, it's about sex and relationships.
Sex and relationships and the complications therein. It works they work as standalone tracks as well.
Yeah,
for sure. But definitely, if you listen to the collection as a whole, there's definitely a story running through it.
Yeah, I agree. No, I agree. My slight reservation was again listening to the Chicken and everything was I slightly got a bit bored towards the end of it. Each time I listened to it, actually, whether that was just to do with the musical backing or to do with it seeming, and perhaps this might have been in a way a criticism of the theme of that particular EP being very similar kind of material.
Yeah.
That I was kind of thinking, well, we've just done this a couple of times already, and now we're doing it again, and so I was kind of wanting a bit more. I don't know. Lyrical variety, and he does do lyrical variety. I've checked out a couple of other songs. He does a really, really excellent song, actually, called "Can I Have a Word," which is about the N-word.
Oh right.
It's a very
I didn't know that.
very clever and very insightful tune about its changing usage and how we should approach the changing usage.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree about the opening track. I think off the EP, If the Shoe Fits, I really like.
Yeah.
Why the second track needs to go on for almost 10 minutes, I have no idea as well. That was also losing me. I'm sorry.
It's 2 tracks. Really,
I know,
kinda.
But again, I'm not really a big fan of long poems as it is, and so long spoken word pieces equally not do work for me. But as you say, an interesting new voice.
Yes, definitely.
And someone, which, funny enough, as we come on to the second bit of this podcast, and something that our 5 choices for album of the year had in common with George is a storyteller.
Yes. Ooh.
So moving upwards, although not necessarily better, we move on to Raury, who is from Atlanta, apparently.
Right.
And I only listened to a couple of his tracks, it has to be said. So I only have a couple of things to go on. And it's interesting. It's got, on the face of it, it's kind of acoustic-y, singer-songwritery, but then kind of not. So the couple of tracks I listened to his one called Cigarette Song, which is it starts off very acoustically and seems like your average singer-songwritery type thing that you'd hear all over the place these days. But then it kind of comes in some really good kind of chopping electric guitar halfway through it in the background, which I really liked. And it's a really kind of nice song, but nice in a kind of good way rather than bad way. And when I was thinking that might be all he has to his bow, he's then got a song God's Whisper, which kind of reminded me of like Kate Bush meets Tricky almost.
Yeah. That's very good.
And it was very interesting sound.
Yeah.
Interesting enough that I will be interested to hear, when an album surfaces, I will be interested enough in that, because those 2 tracks kind of give me hope that he's obviously a man with some talent, so maybe something good could be that. Too hard to tell on the
There's only really the 2 tracks out there,
to make a decision.
Yeah, I completely agree. Got more of an eclectic mix of sounds going on, which promises the variety, perhaps in a fuller recording. There was a track as well that popped up on the Hunger Games, or one of the Hunger Games.
Oh, yes,
soundtracks as well.
Yes, you're right. Yeah,
mostly instrumental, but again, that sort of acoustic meets chippy choppy other sounds, electric as well, which was was interesting.
So number 3, South Londoner, rapper, and influenced by grime.
Yep.
Stormzy.
Yep.
Who is the interesting one on the list, because he was the only one on the list who either didn't have a record deal or didn't have major interest.
All right.
Although he did manage to get an appearance on Jules Holland as an unsigned artist, so not all bad.
Fantastic, yeah.
So Stormzy.
Now again, this took me a couple of listens to the material that's out there. I have to say I've found it improved on repeated listening.
Yeah.
It sounded fresh. It's rap. It's R&B. It's a territory we've not been delved back into for a while.
No, it's British as well, which is good. So it's not pretending to be.
No, it's not pretending to be West Coast or East Coast. It's British, and it doesn't shy away from that. And actually, I thought there's some good stories to tell.
Yeah,
it's all in the stories. It's all in the lyrics. So very interesting. Very interesting. Interesting use of music as well. I think I've made this point previously. Modern rap and R&B. Some real throwbacks to 80s synth, sort of tucked away in there. There was one track in particular that reminded me of, it was kind of almost like Construction Time Again era Depeche Mode. Do you know what I mean? You know, and it's just so obviously the musical collaboration. Perhaps as you picking on your point earlier with George the Poet, you know, the music played very much second fiddle, and with good reason to his poetry. Here it was more integral, and actually it was more interesting as a result.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. I mean, I'm always pleased to hear any kind of rap artist, particularly UK rap artists, actually sounding like they're a UK rap artist.
Yeah, it sounds like, you know, a British artist.
Rather than trying to pretend they're anything else. Well, Grime's not my favourite musical thing. It works well.
I think Grime's moved on as well, because it's not...
Less grimy.
Well, yeah, maybe. It's not as grimy as it was, you know, as we remember. And again, good reason, you know, for it to be on the list. It sounded fresh.
Yeah. No, I'm glad he was, and also I'm glad he's a South Londoner. So, go South London. That's what I say.
Yeah.
So number 2, when the original list of 15 was released, I have to say this was the person I thought was actually going to win it, because I'd actually heard him about the place previously. So this is James Bay, singer-songwriter again, and. If you were being slightly harsh, you could say kind of cross between kind of James Blunt and maybe Tracy Chapman.
Okay. Yeah.
However,
very good.
I think there's a bit more to him than that.
Yeah.
So I'll start with the very good, the current single which Radio 2 have been positively wetting themselves over, "Hold Back the River," which I think, you know, starts off a bit Jeff Buckley-ish.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, does come into that kind of Tracy Chapman, James Blunt thing. And it's a really, really cracking track. Really, really, really good. Really well arranged. Great melodies. Great hook. Rest of his stuff treads similar line, not always as immediate and as good as that. But again, this song called "Wait in Line," which reminded me a bit of Bon Iver, and bizarrely late 80s, early 90s UK metal band Thunder. It's if you know who Thunder are, if you listen to this song, you'll get it. Honest.
I have to look that one up.
And he's got a kind of picky, plucky, kind of bluesy type guitar style, which I quite like.
Yeah.
And again, yeah, it's. I would be quite interested in hearing a full album, because I think it'd be quite a pleasant listen.
Yeah. Agree with all that. It's again, if we're judging this on commerciability, for want of a better phrase, and that sounds awful, then yeah, why not number 1 in the list overall? Clearly has potential to be you know, mainstream. Has been picked up by Radio 2. Perfect sort of sound there for Radio 2, and I don't mean that in a denigrating way. I mean that in a good way. Curious to know more.
Indeed. So we get to the winner. Years and years.
This feels like this podcast.
Yeah.
Well, not this podcast, but you know.
And this is where I'm glad we've arranged it this way, because I have a strange feeling you'll have slightly more to say on years and years than I will.
Oh, okay.
So years and years.
I'll keep it short. I was disappointed.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I saw the synopsis. I saw the introduction to the band.
You thought, God, it sounds like the kind of band I like.
Sounds like the kind of band that Pete likes, you know. You know.
Whereas actually, really, Disclosure.
Yeah, it's the Disclosure thing again. Now, right, okay. I mean, it's promised. I was promised synth pop or electro pop, and I got all very excited. And what he actually ended up with was some sort of electro soul, which.
It's rubbish.
It's neither thing.
That's what it is. Sorry, it's.
No, I didn't. I mean, I've given this 2 or 3 listens, and I didn't really like it. It's again, I can see the commerciability.
So can I, because
in a sense, as opposed to the previous artist, I'm not so sure that's a good thing.
No, so for me, the first track that I played of theirs, which was Desire.
Yeah.
I think I was about 10 seconds in before I just kind of thought, oh, the Disclosure.
You really hated Disclosure, didn't
I
you?
did hate Disclosure, which pretty much sums up my feelings of years and years. 'Cause I listened to all their other tracks, and
going back a couple of years now to your Disclosure sort of version.
So I listened to 7 years and years tracks.
No, I did, and
I didn't like any of them.
No.
Even after multiple listens, I was still thinking, nope, don't get it.
No, I mean, there's a this is faint praise. There's a very good cover in there of "Breathe" by Blue Cantrell, and
which I didn't even spot. There you go.
That's about it.
I didn't even spot that.
No, I was disappointed. But clearly, this is the band that's won, and this is the band that's going to do really well.
Yeah, they're a band that gets played on Radio 1. That's probably why I don't like them.
That's why we're in the wrong scene.
Yeah,
we're in the wrong scene. You know,
there might be one listener who's going, "Oh, they're great.
They're great.
What are you talking about?
They are my favourite new band."
Disclosure.
Yeah. Well, people like Disclosure. Trent Reznor likes Disclosure. Let's not open that up again.
It's just to show that people can be wrong.
Even Trent. So a bit of a disappointing anticlimax there to finish on the number 1 spot. So you're going to ask me what my favourite choice is?
Yeah.
It's clearly George the Poet.
For me, it's a joint George the Poet and James Bay.
There we go.
So moving on to our best of.
This is exciting.
It is exciting.
Yeah.
So we, as you said, because we've done it 5 years, we've had 5.
Yeah.
So 5 times we've got to the bit where we're what is our album?
What is our album
joint
of the
album
year?
Of the year?
We've done that on 5 occasions.
And in 2010, it was Dan le Sac versus Scroobius Pip, Logic of Chance.
Yeah.
In 2011, Mr. Pip was back again with Distraction Pieces.
Yep.
In 2012,
what went on there?
it was Loudon Wainwright III, Older Than My Old Man Now.
And there's a story there.
There is. In 2013, there was John Grant, Pale Green Ghosts.
Yeah.
And for those who didn't listen to the last podcast...
Shame on you.
Exactly. In 2014, it was The Homesteady and Teeth Dreams.
Indeed.
So we'll start off by the fact we both already... One thing we have pre-agreed before the podcast is that Loudon Wainwright is 5th. And that's no offence to Loudon Wainwright. We should just say all this album.
I mean, I have to say, in preparation for this podcast, I went back and listened to all of these and some others.
Yeah.
And it was an absolute joy to go back over. It was like meeting old friends and listening to the Loudon Wainwright III, Older Than My Old Man Now album. When I actually listened to it all the way through, I thought, this is why we picked this.
Yeah, again,
that's only half the story.
It's storytelling.
Yeah, it's the storytelling, and it was, a real joy to listen to. And there were some things in there I'd forgotten about.
Surely not the Dame Edna Everage.
No, I had not forgotten about that, because so you sort of focus on that, and you actually realise there's some really good stuff in there. There's a whole Rufus Wainwright cameo, which I completely forgotten.
On my favourite track on the album.
And sort of the brutal honesty of some of the stuff he's singing about too is. It's got very affecting, and I sort of took me back to probably why we picked it. Although that's only half the story, because I have a feeling we picked it because we couldn't agree on the choice that year.
Yeah,
which is unusual.
While surprisingly, in our time doing the podcast, we have got to the end of the year.
Yeah,
and when it's come to doing our top 5, I've usually had kind of 2 or 3. In the top 5 that we agree with, and everything else all over the shop. I think even in our top 10s for 2012, we were quite
diverse.
Quite diverse, yeah.
Right, okay. Because I was digging around looking for my old list.
Diverse in a good way. I mean, there was some good stuff.
Yeah.
But
So I went back and I found an old list that had Shearwater on it, and
Animal Life, great record.
254.
Yeah,
his next album we reviewed recently,
and Grizzly Bear album, which I'd forgotten about, which I really listened to, which was also very good. I mean, like I said, Loudon Wainwright album was interesting because it was about him talking about remembering his dad and death of his dad. So there are pieces of prose that his dad wrote for Life magazine that he reads out in the course of the album, as well as writing his own songs about his relationships with his children, which obviously have been fractured over the years, culminating with The Days That We Die, which is the one that Rufus sings on as well, which has great lines that says, I want to change, but I don't know how. I need to change, though, I know that now. It's sad that it's true, and I have to say that Days That We Die aren't far away. So it's that kind of thing of, Let's literally bury the hatchet. Life's too short to be
Life's too short.
to be holding grudges for long periods of time just because occasionally we're all arses,
Yeah.
essentially. So, with that firmly ensconced in 5th place,
Yeah. So that was an easy choice to make.
what would be your choice for 4th?
Ooh.
I was torn between 2.
All right. Yeah. So was I. And I wonder if it's the same 2. For me, it's either last year's Hold Steady Teeth Dreams.
Yeah.
Which would definitely be my overall top 10 if we were ever to scale that mountain. And Dan the Sack and Scroobius Pip, The Logic of Chance.
Spookily,
Yeah.
that was the 2 I was.
No way.
Yeah.
And the reason herewith is why. I think it's probably Teeth Dreams.
Ditto.
Yeah.
But it's very close.
Yeah.
But yes.
It's close. I think both albums, weirdly, when you go back and listen to it, I mean, we knew this at the Hold Steady, and this is part of its charm. It does still it sounds like Rough and Ready.
Yeah.
But that's definitely part of its charm. A lot of the critics didn't like that last year, but I actually thought that was part of the charm. It sounds like a record that's been recorded in someone's garage. Great.
Yeah.
But then you listen to Logic of Chance and you realise, and we're probably spoilt now with hindsight, you realise how much both Pip and Dan the Sack have progressed in the interim years in terms of production. Now, I know that we had some very diverse views on the follow-up albums, particularly last year, the year before's
which I didn't really like. But again, that goes back to the music thing I was thinking. It was more. I didn't really think the music married up to his rapping, spoken wording,
and it does marry up better on Logic of Chance. That is for sure. But then it's part of this exercise when you listen to. I move on to Scroobius Pip distraction pieces, and you realise actually what a strong record that really is.
Yeah.
In terms of both the spoken word and the musical collaborations on there. So for me, yeah, okay, I'll go with Teeth Dreams at number 4, Hold Steady, and number 3, Dan the Sack, Scroobius Pip, The Logic of Chance.
Yeah, I would agree. That was kind of how I was thinking this afternoon when I was thinking about how to order this, and in a similar kind of way, really, particularly when it said. What's interesting about this list, obviously, is the fact that we've got 2 Scroobius Pip recordings in there. So it is that kind of thing. Thinking, well, first of all, which of these do I like
more?
And the interesting thing for me, at least, is I think there are better tracks on The Logic of Chance.
Yeah.
But I think Distraction Pieces is a better album. Yeah. So for me, it holds together better as a complete record.
Yeah.
Whereas The Logic of Chance is slightly kind of dips a few times.
There are still some great tracks. I mean, you've got Get Betters on there, which is brilliant. You've got Cowboy at the end as well, which still sends a shiver down my spine when I listen to that. And 5 Minutes. Yeah,
which is one of my favourite tracks.
That's a fantastic track. And then, of course, I cheated because I listened to a couple of albums from 2010, and I thought I'd just mention it. Hot Chip, One Life Stand, which came a close second for me that year, and actually listened to it again. I thought, that would still be in my top 10. Yeah,
wouldn't be in my top 10.
Yeah, I know. Oh no, I really liked it. Anyway, moving on.
So
that's 4 and 3, isn't it?
Yeah. So I'll reveal my preferred.
Go on. What's your preferred running order? Those middle ones.
My running order would be Distraction Pieces at number 2 and Pale Green Ghosts at number 1.
All right. Okay. Right. Well, this won't come as a surprise to any of our listeners. Snap. I mean, Scroobius Pip we've just touched on. Brilliant solo album. But for me, it's John Grant, Pale Green Ghosts. It's 2013, I think of all the years we've covered, 2010 was up there. 2013 was a stellar year.
It was.
And I think, it's only fair that, and as you said at the start, and I would agree with you, probably 2 or 3 of my choices would be in my top. They would be the top 3 of my top 10. I'd probably throw the Pet Shop Boys Electric in there just for good measure. I just think John Grant's album, I listened to it again, it's just so deep and wounding, and
it is just one of the best breakup albums ever, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's gut-wrenching stuff, and yet such a joy. That's the wrong word. But you know what I mean? It's just such an enjoyable record to listen to and to get into. It's so layered, both lyrically, musically, and plus, you know that if you know the personal backstory as well, it just adds that extra edge to it. It is a grim and yet fantastic record. It
is. I agree. It's one of those you put on again and think, yeah, we were right. This is just a
I don't know. It was only just over a year ago we made that call, but no, I think that's a classic.
And it is. It's just that it's back to the, as I said earlier on the podcast. The thing that holds all these artists together is the fact that they're all storytellers, and it is quite interesting, really, looking back that the albums we have chosen to be our album of the year, by hook or by crook, in the Leighton Wainwright instance, have actually been the lyrics and what's going on there has been as key a component, if not more so, than the music.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I said the John Grant thing is just great. It is him sitting down to write an album about how his relationship went tits up and how he's coping with that, and it's just at times vicious, at times touching, at times just brutally melancholy.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to spit out a couple of lines of it. I hate this town, which I think is one that kind of sums up the kind of thing in relationships. When you go, I hate this fucking town. You can't even leave your fucking house without running into someone who no longer cares about you. And that's the kind of thing. If you are living in the same place as somebody you've been in a relationship with, there's always that chance every time you're going to you're going to see them and see them with your friends and stuff like that. If they're in your kind of circle of friends and stuff as well, and it's just like kind of sticking the knife in every time. Yeah. It's a work of genius, kids.
It is absolute work of genius. And thinking about 2013, did you think about Casey Musgrave at all?
Yes, and David Bowie.
And David Bowie.
Yes.
Yeah. Of the 5 years, I think that was our biggest surprise.
It was.
Not the fact that happened.
Yeah. The fact that A, he came back, and B, it was very good.
Easily up there, as we say. But that's the 5.
Yep.
That's the 5 we picked. So that's the list of 5.
Yeah.
I guess we'll do this again in 5 years' time.
There's lots of people out there crying already, thinking, "Oh my God, I'm not still going to be doing this in 5 years' time." There won't be any listeners then. Anyway, obviously, 2015 is going to be an absolute corking year. It's going to be like 2013 all over again. Yeah. Honest Gov. I've got a thing. I think it's 2010 aside. Well, it was new and exciting. Obviously, it's an odd numbered, even numbered year. Maybe it is. Yeah.
We're on a good cycle now. 2015, it's been very positive so far.
Yeah, so stay tuned for future podcasts, because it's going to be a cracking year this year.
Yeah,
and if Spencer, hello, one of our listeners did suggest that maybe we should ask our listeners, that's you, if we happen to miss an album that you think we should have reviewed, then get in touch, let us know. You can tweet us at CTTB Music, and or just contact us in any other means if you know us. And say, oi, review that album, and then we'll ignore you.
There's a good chance we might.
Anyway, until February.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye. Ooh.
You've been listening to the CTTB Music Podcast.